So welcome to this talk on hydrogen. And we are now waking up after the COVID pandemic. And we are waking up to a world that is fully into the energy transition. That's what everybody is talking about. And I think now it's really going to happen. Within 3 decades, we will have a complete transition from the fossil fuel to the renewables. And we have seen all the global leaders, actually representing at least 70% of the emissions, have already committed to net zero by 2050 or 2060. And the main technology will actually be electricity. It will be that we will shift from molecules, fossil fuel molecules, to electrons. But still, we need some molecules also in this new energy mix. We need it to make steel, to make chemicals, and we also need it for transportation when you have a long-distance transportation, for example, in shipping and in aviation. So, but hydrogen so far, it's really been talked about the hydrogen society for 4 or 5 decades. I remember actually back in the 1980s, everybody talked about soon the hydrogen society is to come. But what happened? Now we got the coal society actually. Asia was developed based on coal. So it's yet to develop. The only thing we are using hydrogen for today is hydrotreatment in the refineries, and it is for producing fertilizers. So maybe hydrogen will happen this time. And I think there's a lot of commitments being done by the different governments now. Very much theoretical commitment still. It's still PowerPoint, hydrogen very much. But one of the nations that has been most aggressive in developing a hydrogen strategy has been Scotland. And we are so fortunate today to have, I think, maybe the key brain behind the Scottish hydrogen strategy with us. So I think I will start with you, Stuart, and with a quite open question. Please share with us what is the main points of the strategy, of the hydrogen strategy for Scotland.
Hello, thank you so much for that kind introduction. There's a slight delay in our speaking today, so I'll try and speak a bit slower. I think my accent might be difficult also.
It's going well.
I apologise. Thank you so much. We've been working, and I've been working on hydrogen for about 10 years in the Scottish Government. 10 years ago, we could have held a hydrogen event in a phone box and got everyone in. Today, it's mainstream discussion, and everyone is talking about hydrogen. I think, just like you said, that the hydrogen's time has come. The Scottish Government have been doing, in the past 18 months, a huge amount of research, a huge amount of study and assessment of hydrogen and the hydrogen economy in Scotland. And we've released several key documents, which I'm happy to share later today. Our policy statement was launched in December of 2020, so not that long ago. And in it, we committed to an ambition to have 5 gigawatts of hydrogen in Scotland by 2030, 9 years away, so it's not that long. And that means an enormous ramp-up of hydrogen production in Scotland. For Scotland, we think that we have the ability with our offshore wind resources, which are, in proportion to our population, really massive. So we have an ambition in Scotland to have an additional 10 gigawatts of offshore wind come online by 2030. And there's more to come as well. We have huge resources there. We also have the ability to produce blue hydrogen as well. We're quite blessed in Scotland in that way. But what we see developing when we look across the water at Europe of the future. So for producers of hydrogen at bulk scale, and nations which can do that, and we think Scotland is one of them. We see this opportunity developing for this new industry.
But Stuart, sorry to interrupt, but you said 5 gigawatt, which I think is about 300,000 tons of hydrogen. But that is green hydrogen. But Scotland is a gas nation. In St. Fergus, you have enormous amounts of gas. So do you have plans to develop, to decarbonize that gas and start maybe a head start of producing hydrogen from the natural gas, rather than the more long-term perspective on this green hydrogen from the wind turbines?
You're absolutely right. So about a third of all the gas for the UK lands on the shore at St. Fergus in Scotland. And we do have plans to develop blue hydrogen plants there. So steam methane reformer or autothermal reformer there. The Acorn project is the name of that project. I think blue hydrogen will be big first, with green hydrogen to become bigger to follow. So we think we're going to need both. But what we see for the blue hydrogen is mostly using it in our own economy, particularly for heat, decarbonisation of heat. Could I just mention a project just quickly that we're doing in Scotland? It's already begun. So we're building a hydrogen network of 300 houses in Scotland that's 100% green, this hydrogen from an offshore wind turbine. But that's going to be the first big demonstration in the UK of hydrogen for heat. So that's installing gas boilers, hydrogen gas boilers into 300 houses.
But Stuart, with all this hydrogen you will produce, do you intend to export it, or how large share do you intend to use internally in Scotland, and for which applications?
Well, there's a number of applications, and this is the beauty, I think, of hydrogen, is that you have these different possibilities. So we have quite a big transport network developing in Aberdeen. I don't know if people might be aware, but there's 65 hydrogen vehicles in Aberdeen now, including 25 buses. That's beginning to build and to grow. And there's a project called the Aberdeen Hydrogen Hub, which is what we think it will be our model region for hydrogen to develop. And that's going to move into, we hope, applications in heat and industry as well. But we will, turn to face this export opportunity too. We think we have enough to do both.
That's interesting, because I think, just a comment on the road use of hydrogen. I think the consensus now is at least going in the direction that batteries will take a large share, maybe most of the road traffic, for personal cars, but also for freight, but maybe for trains, and especially for shipping. And you don't have much steel industry left, but maybe for chemical industry. So I think I see there's a lot of applications in Scotland. But also, as you said, maybe the most important usage will basically be for export, and export to a country like France. So then I'm happy to have you here, Pierre Mathieu, the ambassador of France to Norway. So let me start. Will you buy this hydrogen from Scotland? Do you need it? Or can you produce all the hydrogen you would need yourself?
Well, we will always be happy to trade with our Scottish friend, indeed. But maybe we have some efforts to make on our own part on the matter of hydrogen. I was struck by what you say as an introduction, that we are waking from the COVID period and now fully entering the transition, energy transition period. There is a link between the two things. Not that energy transition was not necessary before COVID, it was already. But there is obviously an acceleration effect of the crisis. When you look at the response from most governments in Europe especially, and I would say Europe in a broad sense, you observe that a large part of the recovery plans, of the stimulus packages that has been decided, are completely oriented on the notion of energy transition. It is true for Norway, it is true for France, it is true at European level, with the next generation plan, and never in the past have we imagined to put so much money on the question of energy transition. So, we must see the crisis we are still in as also a factor that has triggered a new perspective, a new way of imagining the future. So for hydrogen, we are exactly in this situation in France. We had an hydrogen strategy since 2018, but we are now in the process of hugely accelerating it. The French government has committed to 7 billion euros dedicated to that strategy from now to 2030. That's 60 billion kroner. And we have set a series of goals. The first one is to produce hydrogen.
Okay. You cannot produce that from nuclear power. It doesn't really make sense, does it? Because nuclear power is a very steady base load, and if you have an electron, you will always use the electrons on. And would you, or is it actually the plan to produce even from nuclear power?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
We believe that nuclear power is one of the cleanest energy in the world.
It is.
It has been and always will be. So we will change our energy mix in the future. We will slowly reduce the percentage of electricity coming from nuclear plants, but still we have a goal to be to keep almost 50% of our energy coming from that origin. Okay. So we can produce, yes, blue hydrogen from our energy mix. We have also hydroelectricity. Unfortunately, less than Norway, but still we have a part of it. And we will have other sources of electricity when the percentage of renewable will increase in the future. That means indeed solar, but also wind power.
But what will be the applications for hydrogen in France?
We believe that we can use it in large part in transportation. There are really interesting applications for indeed shipping.
Yeah.
And this is a part of our programs in innovation and researches. We had a small French company called Litten, who was at the origin of, I believe, the first hydrogen-powered ship,
okay.
Which is called Solar Observer. And is still now around the seas, and it has been traveling.
But in shipping for the ferries then, or for like that, or deeper sea?
Yes, deeper sea too. But we will, as you know, we are not the most important shipping nation in the world. No. We know that, but we can probably contribute to making other countries' fleet greener, because we produce ships. Yeah. We are shipbuilders on our Atlantic facade. So that's one thing. We are also developing an ambitious program for airplane.
Aviation.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yes, and this is an important goal for the future, because as you know, making air transportation cleaner is a very important goal. So we believe that by 2035, we could have a real application on that for hydrogen.
Thank you. I think we must also check with our German friends. Yeah. So Ulrich, will you need to buy the Scottish hydrogen, or will you produce yourself? So what is the import and the kind of own production here, and what is the applications in Germany? So,
yeah, thank you very much. The idea in Germany is, of course, to produce locally green hydrogen, that managing the industrial process. But the German economy, the industry, is so big, and the need for energy imports today is huge. And what our analysis shows, Germany in the decarbonized era of energy will be compelled to import green molecules at a large scale. For us, the basic idea is decarbonization in our country and in Europe should never, ever lead to deindustrialization. And if that is going to happen, and if that is our plan, then the Germans will have to import large quantities of green molecules for the chemical industry, for the steel industry, and for other applications.
Sorry, do you mean specifically green hydrogen, or in this context could also blue hydrogen, carbon-free hydrogen from natural gas, could that also go under this definition of a green molecule?
Yes. In our hydrogen strategy, we clearly outlined that we see blue hydrogen as a transition. There are these debates of methane leakage and all that stuff, but in principle, we are of course also open for blue hydrogen. And in the end, I'm pretty sure it will be decided by markets and by price, because it is a question of cost, effectiveness and profitability. When I'm saying that the steel industry will use, and the chemical industry, large quantities, then they will have to buy it there where is the cheapest offer. And what is our job as a government, in particular now, is to make sure that the pipeline network that we have for natural gas, which is a huge and very good asset, that we will have to prepare that to be able to transport large quantities of hydrogen in the future.
Yeah.
And with regard to our IPCEI projects, these hydrogen projects, these are projects of
just
common
to follow up on
interest.
That's a very interesting question on the pipeline network. So I know that you could put 10, maybe 15%, some places 20% hydrogen into the natural gas. Many places, but not all places, and it's not harmonized across Europe. So we don't really know how the burners and boilers will take this. But then, so this is one thing. But the other is the next step is basically use pure hydrogen. And do you have some technical feasibility studies showing to what extent is that possible? What kind of investments do you need for this transformation?
Yeah. In fact, our idea is to start with pure hydrogen pipelines, because blending is not what we at this point in time think is cost effective.
Okay.
Because we have natural gas, and therefore the blending comes later, at a later stage. We want to have pure hydrogen network pipelines now, and we design the project that we have now in a way that we will support projects only, and that's also the European framework. If you know what electrolyzer will produce what quantities of hydrogen, or you import it as blue, it's okay. Then we have, but we will not support that with, of course, state aid. The state aid is reserved for green hydrogen. Then, of course, we have to design and retrofit the pipelines. So, those that we don't use now for natural gas, we design for hydrogen. It needs some retrofitting, but technically it works. It's proven. We have our technical organizations doing that. We don't see any major obstacle in terms of long-term investment. It's a relatively cheap investment if you compare it to electricity lines. And then, of course, we have to decide who will use this hydrogen, because at the beginning it will be more expensive. So we also need schemes to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And the European regulation is very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Just to take the Norwegian perspective, as I was asked for, I think we would love to export molecules, continue to export that to France and to Germany. I think we're doing technical feasibility studies now, whether these enormous gas pipeline network we have could be reused for hydrogen. Or alternatively, you can do the decarbonization on the continent. But also we are in Norway building now big hubs of trying to develop some local hydrogen hubs for shipping. But this is still quite small projects. So I think the big question is whether we can reuse all these investments done. But then let's now turn to shipping. And we saw these 5 movies showing ambitions within shipping, even ammonia shipping. And let's then start in Scotland again with you, Stuart. So basically, do you believe that we, within 10 years, could see a significant transformation to hydrogen in shipping? And could Scotland take a role in this?
Well, I think in terms of shipping, things have to change, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think hydrogen is part of the answer, definitely. The hydrogen might be in a different form. It could be in ammonia, as you mentioned before, and your other guests have mentioned. And we've just completed a study on the transportation of hydrogen from Scotland to Europe and which form may be best. So this is a study which examined LOHC, liquid organic hydrogen carriers, and ammonia. So that's going to be released quite soon. So it's given us an idea of the best way to transport hydrogen in bulk. But using hydrogen in ships as a fuel, it has a real future, I think. And what it also does is it will change the geography of where the fuel comes from. So if you think about where fuel, marine fuels produced today, if you're using hydrogen as that chemical feedstock, then the geography of where that comes from will change.
Okay.
And places that, like Scotland that have a lot of hydrogen could position themselves quite well, and lots of other countries as well.
Yeah, thanks. We should also listen to the French perspective. And Marseille is the biggest harbor. So will we see a hydrogen infrastructure in Marseille, for example, for the Mediterranean traffic?
There is a European program called Flagships Program. Who is now looking at the development of commercially operated hydrogen fuel cell ships. And there are
rather than combustion, which is from a carbon footprint even better.
Yes, and there are two prototypes. One is in Norway, operated by Norway. It's one of your ferry, and the other one will be applying very soon on the River Seine. So we are already, I would say, at a realization stage. But our ambition is really to create a new generation of fuel-powered ships, and we have firms, companies working on that. They are not in Marseille, but it's very near. It's in Aix-en-Provence, if you know the south of France. It's quite a nice place. I indeed urge you to go there whenever.
So I think this will be
soon as you can.
The key topic to debate going forward. Of course, a very hot topic for Nord Shipping. I think the time is up. Now I will have the opportunity to have some overall perspectives now very soon. So thank you again to all the panelists for all these very interesting perspectives for your countries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then over to the slides. Yes. So I was asked also to give a small summary, and basically I have only 2 slides to share with you on this very strange time we are in after COVID and looking to the future of energy. And in the beginning of May, we developed a very holistic perspective on the global energy markets to see what that would look like for the rest of this century, actually. So what you see now is the global primary energy production from 1965 to 2100. And the brown reddish colors here are the fossil fuel, coal, oil and gas, while the greenish colors are the renewables, as you see, with biomass, hydro, but most importantly, the wind and solar going forward. So a few observations. First, we see that primary energy is not going to grow anymore. It's actually going to decline slightly and flatten out. And the key reason for that is that every time you use a fossil fuel molecule, 2/3 of that energy is lost in heat to the environment, and you're only using the energy service from 1/3 of the energy that is in that molecule. So even with a declining overall use of energy, since the new energy is electrons directly from the solar panels or from the wind turbines, you will actually have more access to energy for the end users. So this is actually possible. But by 2050, the fossil fuel is gone from 85% today to 25% only. By the way, you can compare this with the IEA figures. We are very similar on gas, quite similar on coal, but we think IEA is actually far too aggressive in terms of oil. They have 71 million barrels of oil consumption only in 2030, and we don't get that to add up regardless of how fast EV penetration you would see. They are assuming an extremely swift shift to biofuel and also to a behavioral change that we are actually holding back from traveling and buying goods for transportation. So we think this is not very realistic, but still this perspective I'm just showing you is within the 1.5 degree scenario. It's possible to reach that even with this scenario. We have 93 million barrels of oil consumption in 2030, going down to 36 in 2050, which is very aggressive decline. But still, also we actually need quite some activity going forward still in the oil industries also. So this was overall, but you see here one sliver of this will be hydrogen. We see actually this growing from 70 million ton today to 350 million ton, and a quite significant part of, or maybe 20% of that can be used for shipping. So if we then go to the next slide, we have tried now to think what could the shipping industry look like going forward? What will fuel all the ships globally? And here you see a perspective. So the top line is actually the transportation need, because we expect that the ton miles globally will grow to maybe to 90 or 95 million trillion ton miles by 2050. But energy efficiency is the most important thing. We get better engines, so the demand is going down due to that. It's been 2.1% per year over the last 10 years. We think that can increase to 2.5% per year going forward. So that's why the total shipping fuel, the shipping energy is going down. Also, since coal, oil and natural gas is a significant part, up to 25% of global shipping, that will also take down. And also we will have electricity taking very much of the short sea market with battery ferries, etc. All transportation less than 1 hour will maybe be done by this, also some biofuel. But as you see, hydrogen will be the largest part of the shipping market. And consistent with what we see the production trend, it is actually possible to have a complete conversion to green fuel by 2050. You don't need an ambition to reduce it by 50 or 70%. You can have a zero emission target for global shipping by 2050. And I hope really that will be something that the people in the North Shipping will aim for. So thank you very much.
Tough enough to be on a spacecraft, light enough to be in vehicles. Some call us pioneers or enablers. Our composites technology is at the heart of what we do, and we do it with passion. Because we believe that clean air is a right, not a privilege.
The maritime industry is facing new challenges. The time to act is now. Hydrogen from renewable energy, combined with our fuel cells, will support you decarbonizing your vessels without compromising the performance. Our marine fuel cell system is developed to meet the highest marine safety standards. And most importantly, we can provide you with megawatt fuel cell solutions today. With us as a partner, your vessels will have high performance, efficiency, and safe operations, with true zero emission. It's time to move to a sustainable shipping. Join the next big wave today.